here we are again, getting ready to get some more work done on this Raptor Copart salvage vehicle rebuild for this Raptor F150. And so I just wanted to do a quick update and just show you guys some of the other stuff that I've put together since we got this truck down to a reasonable place where we could work on it. I wanted to just kind of give you an update, some of the things, how they go back together and what have you, so that we don't lose track of the steps and forget stuff. Last time I had it hanging still on the engine hoist, but I've since got it back down, and I've got it sitting on jack stands, and I've done a few things to the truck. I got the tank cleaned up, and I got the drive shaft cleaned up and ready to go back on there. I got some rust off of the front drive shaft. I need to clean it up a little bit more. I might go ahead and throw some paint on it so that it really stops, because that one was really rusted, so I think they were getting into some deep stuff in the front. But we'll get that cleaned up, and we'll get those items put back on underneath. Then we'll be done with pretty much everything underneath, and then we can start focusing on the stuff up above, which I've already gotten the hood on, so that keeps the weather off of the engine and any of the stuff up front. And I've gotten, I showed you guys, we've done the brakes already on the truck, got that all done. We've hooked up some of the stuff, so let me go through that and show you some of the things so that you don't forget to put some of these things back together. Okay, so don't forget, here there's a little screw that goes to a shield right here. Okay, and it is kind of tight here. With the wreck, this thing was all the way underneath the body here. There's room in here to get that screw on, but it is really easier if before you bring the frame all the way up that you go ahead and get this guy started and lined up, because once you bring the frame all the way up, you can't really move that. That piece is pretty tight underneath the body and the frame. So just for you to remember to do that. The other thing is, I went ahead and I hooked up there's a little ground wire here. Do not forget this ground wire, because you may have some electronic problems. All these grounds got to be on and be good. So I went ahead and got that hooked up so I don't forget. I went ahead and I hooked up my sensors for the brakes. These little clips here will set inside the wheel well that goes in here, the plastic wheel well that goes inside the wheel. So we'll do that then. We've got a couple of things that plug in there whenever we get that on there. So we'll get that plugged in then. But I got that plugged in, and then let's see, I got the hood on, so you guys can see I got the hood on. I lowered the truck far enough now where it's not so bad to reach all the way up there to get those hood bolts on there. That's a challenge if you're doing that by yourself. But we got the hood on there now. I still gotta reclip don't forget to reclip all the wires that go to the lights that are up on the hood. I'm going to do that, but I need to use my step stool for that because that's still high for me. I went ahead and hooked up my brake lines right here on the master cylinder. You don't want to forget those two right there. And so I went ahead and I filled up the reservoir with brake fluid so that we're good to go. I can start to bleed the brakes and get that done. Actually, I'm going to try this method this guy was showing on YouTube on bleeding brakes, where if you're doing it yourself, you can use a bottle sprayer. I'm going to try that method maybe later. I might run to Harbor Freight or something and find me some clear hose so I can see the brake fluid, and then I'll go ahead and try that method. That seemed like a pretty slick way to do that, so maybe I'll show you guys that if we get to that. The other thing is, don't forget to connect this harness back in here that goes in here. This is the for the brake distributor. So that is there. We got to plug that back in. So we did that. What else did we do? Oh yeah, so under here we went ahead and plugged in our wires here to the electronics, well, to the brakes and all of the stuff that goes to the back of the vehicle. So this harness goes to the back, to the tank and everything else. So there's two of these that plugged in here. There's one here and there's this big one here. And then I also plugged in the other sensor for the left-hand side brake. I went ahead and plugged that. Don't forget your vacuum hose, this vacuum hose that goes to the brakes to the four-wheel drive deal. It goes all the way up in here. Oh, let's see if I can see it. It goes in the side of the, right here. Let me move this. Yeah. So you can see it goes right in the side of this little valve that's right here. There's this little thing with a blue deal that comes right off the vacuum. There's a little port right above it. I struggled a little bit to find that thing because I forgot where it plugged in, but I found it. So it goes right in there. Don't forget that. Plug that in. Then this is your vent tube for your front differential, and it's got some clips in here that attach so that you can run it. It comes all the way from the bottom, runs up here, and it plugs right in here on the bolt. It just kind of slips over the threads on the bolt that holds the master cylinder, so that vent is really high up there, so you don't get water in your differential if you get into some deep stuff. The other thing I did is I went ahead and I got my steering hooked back up. I did what I did to make sure I had it in the right place and see how well it was going to line up with the steering wheel, because I didn't know what kind of damage that wreck did and how far off my alignment's going to be. What I did is I took and measured from the frame. Let me see. So from the frame, if you look right here, let me see, I'll find it right there. See, there's a little hole right underneath there. Let me see, right there. As you look at it, there's this little piece right here. Right there's a little hole right there. So I measured from the frame on that little hole at the angle that the tape measure would come, and following the line of the steering, the rack and pinion steering coming towards the wheel, I followed that line all the way down here, and I measured to the edge of my spindle here, so my front brake spindle. And I did that on both sides from the same point so that I could make sure that the front spindles were lined up with the frame, at least, so that that gave me where they were the exact same distance from that frame piece, hopefully to line that up perfectly. And then I went up inside the truck, and the good thing, this thing has that little red marker there. I don't know if you can see that, but it has the red marker right there. And so you just line that straight up, just like I have that right there. And then you go ahead and find that little deal is a square. It's a square kind of slot. So when that thing goes in there, it's not round, it's square. So once you get that lined up, it should just go in one place. And that just slips right in there. You got to make sure you don't have a nut in it when you do that. And this will turn so you can get it to where you need it to see what you're doing. But first, you got to slide it in there. Like I did, I slid it in there first so that it would turn with the steering rod. And then that way, once I got it in there to try and get it in all the way, then I turned it. And then I took just a little, one of my small hammers, and I knocked it in there till it lined up. And then I stuck my bolt in there. And then from here, you can tighten it with whatever you need to get to it. So that's pretty easy. So I got that done. What else did I do? Oh, I went ahead and I re-hooked up my my brake cable. Where is it? Here it is. Right here, the one that gave me such a hard time getting it off. So I went ahead, now that everything's back together, that front piece goes in that slot on the frame, and then once it's there, you can pull on that cable and bring them together and get it back into the slot with the emergency brake cable. So we could get all that done. And then, as you can see here, don't forget there's a bolt that holds the brake cables right here. It's underneath. Yeah, right here. So that bolt holds this whole brake piece here. So when you get this axle back in there, those got to go in the slots, and then this bolt goes in there to hold that on there. And so that's done. I went ahead and I got my exhaust back in there, as you can see. Oops, blocking the camera there. But as you can see, I got my exhaust back in there. One of the things that makes it easier is to go ahead and have these rubber grommet holders, suspenders for the exhaust. Have those installed already. See, here's another one right here. Now the front one, the one on the side, which is that one there, let's see, you can see that one there. What I did with that one doesn't slide out real easy. It's got a knob on the end of that. There's a knob right here. What I had done originally is I just unbolted it from the frame there. So that one there, I'd left it attached to the muffler, and I didn't put those bolts in right away. So what I did is I went ahead and I went ahead and jacked up the frame. So I jacked up the frame from here and lifted it with my jack up here, so that the suspension would go down and the axle would go down and separate away from the frame. The further you can do that, if you can raise the frame and hold it up, or lift the truck from the frame, so that the suspension will be fully bottom, go all the way down, then it gives you a lot more room to get your exhaust in here. And then I just brought it in from the side, and then you got some room there. You pop it over the axle. Once you get it over the axle, then what you got to try and do is lift it up and get it lined up with those two flange holes. And those are real easy. Once you get them lined up, you just slide that in there, and once that's lined up, they're not going anywhere. Then you can bolt up the front where it hooks up to the other exhaust header piece. See if I can show you that piece. See if I can crawl under here and show you that. Okay, so where are you? Right here. So once you get those two back pieces in there, then you can raise the front of this up and get those bolts in there on the exhaust flange. And after you tighten those, make sure that you have the other flange piece here that goes on the side of the frame. Make sure that it's turned this way before you bolt up the flange on the front. Make sure that this is rotated up to the top, that this piece is up to the top. Otherwise, once you bolt that up, if this is down here, you won't be able to rotate this up to get this this lined up with these two bolts. So I did that. I rotated that up and I let it hang over to this side, and then I bolted up the front flange, and then you can bring this back down and then just bolt it right into those two bolts that go there. And so we've done that. We've also went ahead and bolted up the fuel cell that's on the other side right there, I guess. Yeah, so we got this bolted back in there, which is good now. It's going to be out of the way when I go to bring the tank back in, I got these tank brackets hanging there ready for the tank, so that'll be the next step. I'll bring my tank. I did drain the gas out of the tank so that it'll be easier for me to lift up there. You know, it won't be so heavy and the fuel won't be sloshing around, because if you have fuel in there and that thing is sloshing around, man, that thing will take and tip on you and go one way or the other. The other thing that I installed is there is a shield, an exhaust shield that has to go under here, and you want to make sure that you don't forget it and where it goes. So I'll show you where that is right now. Okay, so this is laying underneath the fuel cell on this side, but the shield actually goes, oh man, it's hard to see. Okay, here it is. All right, so here's the exhaust pipe that comes from the engine, turns here. But if you notice above it, right up here, there's a shield. And it bolts to the side of the frame right there where my little pinky is. And then the other part sits on top of this cross member, which if you're not aware of that, it's hard to find. There's just one little hole up there that you can take and bolt that shield to. So you need to get that shield. And my recommendation, because I struggled with it a little bit, is to go ahead and put the bolt that goes on top of the cross member in first and get it started. Once you get, well, actually, I went ahead and tightened it down so I could kind of form the shield to where it needed to be in order to get the other one lined up over there. Because for some reason, I don't know if I stepped on that shield or what, but it seemed to not line up just off the bat. So I had to bolt one end down and then push the shield in kind of back towards this way to try and get it to reform itself and line up with that bolt hole on the side of the frame. So, well, that's gonna do it for this episode. So please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. See you on the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.